Namo Buddhaya, Deepji, Namo Buddhaya. We start the session now, and we start with the vipassana meditation, guided vipassana meditation. So, for 15 minutes. So, make yourself comfortable and okay. So, let us start the meditation. Um, close your eyes, spine straight, and gently bring your awareness on the abdomen and note the abdomen as it rises and falls. You can note it as rising, falling. When the abdomen rises, you can note it as rising. When the abdomen falls, you can note it as falling. So we continue to observe the movement of the abdomen for a few minutes. We do not change the pattern of the breathing, just observing, rising, falling. Keep observing the rising and falling of the abdomen. Bring your full awareness to the noting, rising, falling. No need to verbalize, just mentally you can do. And as your mindfulness, as your concentration develops, you can bring your awareness to anything that is arising in this very moment. It may be pain, it may be sensation, it may be thoughts. You can note them as pain, pain, or note the thought as thought, thought. Just note whatever is arising in this very moment. If the mind is not sufficiently concentrated, keep your awareness on the rising and falling of the abdomen. Keep noting whatever is arising right now with full equanimity. Anger is arising, note it as anger, anger. Any pain is arising, note it as pain, pain. Keep noting whatever is arising in this moment. Noting whatever is rising in this moment. If at any time the mind becomes unconcentrated, you can come back to the rising and falling of the abdomen. Otherwise, keep noting whatever is arising. Stressed in this awareness of whatever is arising in this moment. No craving, no aversion, just observing whatever is arising. Be equanimous with any sensation that is arising, pleasurable sensation or unpleasurable sensation. Keep observing whatever is arising in this moment. And we may realize that everything, whatever state is arising, whatever sensation is arising, is impermanent. It arises and it fades away. Keep observing whatever is arising. Keep noting. Pain is there, note it as pain. If any sensation is there, note it as sensation. Keep noting whatever is arising. Now we close the meditation. You may wish to take an intention that whatever merit that you have gained from this meditation, may it go out to all beings who are suffering. May all beings be at peace. May all beings be free from suffering. We can take that intention and close this meditation. Whenever you feel complete, you can open your eyes. You're fine. Namo Buddhaya, Sneha ji, Priya ji. Thank you for joining. Okay, so any questions anyone has on the meditation? Or if my voice was low, you could not hear my voice properly. Okay, thank you, Sneha ji. Thank you so much. Yes, let those emotions release. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you so much. Okay, so Deepji, sorry, I will share that thing I just missed. The things that I said, I will share those documents after this session. Okay, so we start with this book, continue with this book, Old Path, White Clouds by Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh. And we are now on chapter 57. We have almost completed 75% of the book, or maybe 70%. So it is page 383. The raft is not the shore. I'm starting to read. That winter, the Buddha stayed in Vesali. One day, while he was meditating not far from Kutargasala Dharma the hall, several bhikkhus committed suicide in another part of the monastery. When Buddha was informed, he asked what led them to kill themselves. He was sorry. He was told that after meditating on the impermanent and fading nature of the body, these bhikkhus expressed aversion for the body and no longer wished to live. The Buddha was saddened to hear this. He called all the remaining bhikkhus together. He said, Bhikkhus, we meditate on impermanence and fading in order to see into the true nature of all dharmas, so that we will not be bound by them. Enlightenment and freedom cannot be attained by escaping the world. They can only be attained when one sees deeply into the true nature of all dharmas. That means only when the insight comes. These brothers did not understand, and so they foolishly sought to escape. By doing so, they violated the precept against killing. So, suicide is also one form of killing. So, one of the cardinal precepts in Buddha's teaching is no killing. And this precept got violated when they killed themselves. Right? So, suicide is also not at all kind of allowed, and one should never commit that. Bhikkhus, a liberated person neither clings to dharmas nor now dharmas here basically means all the interior and exterior phenomena that is there, that is available, right? It's not the dharmas meaning religion, right? It's like whatever is there, right? A bhikkhus, a liberated person, neither clings to dharmas nor feels aversion to them. Clinging and aversion are both ropes that bind. Clinging and aversion are both ropes that bind. A free person transcends both in order to dwell in peace and happiness. Such a happiness cannot be measured. A free person does not cling to narrow views about permanence and a separate self, nor does he cling to narrow views about impermanence and non self. So we do not even cling to any narrow view about impermanence, also, right? Bhikkhus study and practice the teaching intelligently in the spirit of non attachment. And the Buddha taught the bhikkhus the practice of conscious breathing to help them refresh themselves. When he returned to Savatthi, the Buddha gave further teaching on breaking through attachment in response to a bhikkhu named Aritha, who was bound to narrow views because he misunderstood the teaching. Sitting before the bhikkhus at Jetavana, the Buddha said, Bhikkhus, if the teaching is misunderstood, it is possible to become caught in narrow views, which will create suffering for oneself and others. You must listen to, just a second. If the teaching is misunderstood, it is possible to become caught in narrow views, which will create suffering for oneself and others. You must listen to, understand, and apply the teaching in an intelligent manner. Someone who understands snakes uses a forked stick to pin down a snake's neck before trying to pick it up. If he picks the snake up by the tail or body, the snake can easily bite him. So even the study of the teaching, also what we do is has to be intelligently done. It's like a snake. If you try to pick a snake from a tail, then it will bite you. Similar is teaching, right? So we have to grasp the teaching in the right way. This analogy Buddha gave in one of the discourses. Just as you would use your intelligence in catching a snake, you should use it to study the teaching. Because the teaching is merely a vehicle to describe the truth. Don't mistake it for the truth itself. A finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. The finger is needed to know where to look for the moon. But if you mistake the finger for the moon itself, you will never know the real moon. So we don't get stuck in the teaching. We don't develop narrow views with respect to, okay, this is there in the words of the teaching. And this is, I see a lot of, kind of it becomes a lot of theory, right? Even the bhikkhus, they engage in lot of theoretical kind of, sessions that, this is this word, this is this word, too much into that, theory thing. So we'll not go into that. Because the teaching is merely a vehicle to describe the truth, don't mistake it for the truth itself. A finger pointing at the moon is not the moon. The finger is needed to know where to look for the moon, but if you mistake the finger for the moon, you will never know the real moon. The teaching is like a raft that carries you to the other shore. A raft is needed, but the raft is not the other shore. An intelligent person would not carry the raft around on his head after making it across to the other shore. Bhikkhus, my teaching is the raft which can help you cross to the other shore, beyond birth and death. Use the raft to cross the other shore, but don't hang onto it as your property. Do not be caught in the teaching. You must be able to let it go. Because all the teaching I have given you, such as the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Eightfold Path, the Four Establishments of Mindfulness, the Seven Factors of Awakening, impermanence, non self, suffering, emptiness, signlessness, and aimlessness, should be studied in an intelligent, open manner. Use the teachings to help you reach liberation. Do not become attached to them. So there's this thing that someone said, is I might have shared it before. Someone said that uh, is there a person who believes in God? He went up to Buddha and it said, so Buddha said, no, there is no God. And then another person who was an atheist, he did not believe in God, and he asked whether there is God. Buddha said, yes, there is God. So basically, then they asked that why are you giving different opinions? Buddha said, I want to break your these concepts that you hold, right? So let not get attached to the teaching. Just follow the teaching to discover the truth, not just get attached and stuck to the teaching. The monastery for bhikkhunis housed 500 nuns. They frequently invited the Buddha and other venerables from Jetavana to come and give the Dhamma talks. Venerable Ananda was asked by the Buddha to be in charge of selecting which monks should go to deliver Dhamma talks to the bhikkhunis. One day he is assigned Venerable Bhanda to go. Venerable Bhanda had attained deep roots in his practice, but he was not noted for his speaking talent. The following day, after begging and eating his meal alone in the forest, he went to the Bhikkhuni center. The sisters warmly received him, and Bhikkhuni Gautami invited him to sit on the pedestal to give a Dhamma talk. After settling on the cushion, he recited a short poem. Dwelling in tranquility, seeing the Dhamma, returning to the source without hatred or violence, joy and peace overflow. Mindfulness is held perfectly. True peace and ease are realized. Transcending all desires is the greatest happiness. Transcending all desires is the greatest happiness. The Venerable said no more, but proceeded to enter into a state of deep concentration. Though his words had been few, His presence radiated peace and happiness, which most of the sisters found greatly encouraging. Some of the younger sisters, however, were disappointed by how short his talk was. They urged Bhikkhuni Gautami to ask if he might say something more. Bhikkhuni Gautami bowed to Venerable Bhanda and expressed the wish of the younger sisters. But Venerable Bhanda simply repeated the same poem again and then stepped down from the pedestal. Some days later, the Buddha was told about Venerable Bhanda's Dharma talk. It was suggested to the Buddha that in the future, monks more talented at speaking should give the Dhamma talks. But the Buddha replied that the person's presence was more important than his words. One morning, after returning from his begging, the Buddha was unable to find Ananda. Venerable Rahula and others said they had not seen him. Then one bhikkhu reported that he had seen Ananda go begging in a nearby village of untouchables. The Buddha go into the village and look for Ananda. The bhikkhus found Ananda and returned with him to the monastery. He also brought back two women, mother and a daughter, whose name was Prakriti. The Buddha listened to Ananda explain how he had been delayed that day. One day, several weeks before, on his way back to the monastery after begging, Ananda suddenly felt thirsty. He stopped by the well in the untouchable village for a drink. Then he found Prakriti lifting a bucket of water from the well. She was a beautiful young woman. Ananda asked her for a drink of water, but she refused. She told him she was untouchable and did not dare pollute a monk by offering him water. Ananda told him, I do not need high rank or caste. I only need a drink of water. I would be happy to receive it from you. Please don't be afraid of polluting me. Prakriti offered him water at once. She felt drawn to this kind and handsome monk who spoke so gently. She was smitten with love. At night she could not sleep. All her thoughts were of Ananda. She waited by the well every day in the hopes of catching a glimpse of him. She persuaded her mother to invite him to share a meal in their home. He accepted twice, but sensing that the young woman had fallen in love with him, he refused additional invitations. Prakriti was lovesick. She grew thin and pale. Finally, she confessed her feelings to her mother. She said she wanted Ananda to renounce his vows and marry her. Her shocked mother shouted at her and told her it was a foolish and impossible love. But Prakriti said she would sooner die than give up Ananda. Fearing for her daughter's health, Prakriti's mother prepared an aphrodisiac in hopes that she might get Ananda to respond to her daughter's passion. She was from the Matanga clan and knew a number of shamanistic potions. That morning, Prakriti met Ananda on the street and implored him to accept one last invitation to eat at their home. Ananda was confident he could offer Prakriti and her mother teaching that would enable Prakriti to let go of her desire for him. But he had no chance to teach anything before he drank the tainted tea. His head began to swim and his limbs went weak. He realized at once what had happened and he turned to his breathing to counteract the effects of the herbs. The bhikkhu sent by the Buddha found him in the Prakriti's hut, sitting perfectly still in the lotus position. The Buddha gently asked Prakriti, You love Bhikkhu Ananda deeply, don't you? Prakriti answered, I love him with all my heart. What is it that you love him about him? Is it his eyes, his nose, or perhaps his mouth? I love everything about him, his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his voice, the way he walks. Master, I love everything about him. Besides his eyes, nose, mouth, voice, and walk, Bhikkhu Ananda possesses many beautiful qualities which you do not know yet. What qualities are those? Asked Prakriti. The Buddha answered, His heart of love is one. Do you know what Bhikkhu Ananda loves? Sir, I do not know what he loves. I only know that he doesn't love me. You are mistaken. Bhikkhu Ananda does love you, but not in the way you desire. Bhikkhu Ananda loves the path of liberation, freedom, peace, and joy. Thanks to the liberation and freedom he experiences, Bhikkhu Ananda often smiles. He loves all other beings. He wants to bring the path of liberation to all others so that they too may enjoy freedom, peace, and joy. Prakriti, Bhikkhu Ananda's love comes from the understanding and liberation. He does not suffer or feel hopeless because of his love. unlike the way your love makes you feel. If you truly love Bhikkhu Ananda, you will understand his love and you will allow him to continue living the life of liberation he has chosen. If you knew how to love in the way Bhikkhu Ananda does, you would no longer suffer and feel hopeless. Your suffering and hopelessness result from your wanting Bhikkhu Ananda all to yourself. This is a selfish kind of love. How deep, I think we all can, like, relate to this. And Prakriti looked at the Buddha and asked, but how can I love in the way the Bhikkhu Ananda loves? Love in a way that will preserve the happiness of Bhikkhu Ananda as well as your own happiness. Bhikkhu Ananda is like a fresh breeze. If you catch a breeze and trap it in a prison of love, the breeze will soon die, and no one will be able to benefit from its coolness, including yourself. Love Ananda as you would a refreshing breeze. Prakriti, if you could love like that, you could become a cool, refreshing breeze yourself. You would relieve your own pains and burdens and those of many others as well. Please, Master, teach me how to love in such a way. You can choose the same path as Bhikkhu Ananda. You can live a life of liberation, peace, and joy, bringing happiness to others just as Bhikkhu Ananda does. You could be ordained just as he is. But I am an untouchable. How I can be ordained? We have no caste in our Sangha. Several untouchable men have already been ordained as bhikkhus. Venerable Sunita, so highly regarded by King Pasanadi, was an untouchable. If you wanted to become a bhikkhuni, you would be the first nun to come from the untouchables. If you want, I will ask Sister Khema to perform an ordination ceremony for you. Overcome with joy, Prakriti prostrated himself before the Buddha and asked to be ordained. The Buddha gave Prakriti into Sister Khema's care. After the nun and young women departed, the Buddha looked at Ananda and then spoke to the entire community. Bhikkhus, Ananda's vows are still intact, but I want all of you to be more careful in your outside relations. If you dwell continuously in mindfulness, you will see what is taking place both within and without you. That means within and outside of me. Detecting something early on will enable you to deal effectively with it. By practicing mindfulness every moment of your daily life, you will be able to develop the concentration needed to avoid situations such as this. So this is basically the important thing. We think, what's the point in drinking a water with full mindfulness or walking left step, right step, left step, right step? The basic purpose is that our mind should become so concentrated. So then when these situations arise, right, desire, passion, all these things, we are able to retain our mindfulness, and at least we can then be in a position to take a right decision. Like there is this example of a lethal viper that Buddha says that all these sensual desires are like a lethal viper. If you know a viper is a poisonous snake, if you know there's a poisonous snake in front of you, you won't try to touch it. You will stay away from it, right? So that is where and now understanding very importantly, one thing is that in the lay life that we are, it's not possible always to be away from sensual desires and all the sensual pleasures of the five senses. But reduce. You have to work on reducing them, right? And that's the best we can do, given the situation that we are in. And mindfulness will help us do that. By practicing mindfulness every moment of your daily life, you will be able to develop the concentration needed to avoid situations such as this. When your concentration is strong and stable, your vision will be clear and your actions timely. Concentration and understanding go hand in hand with each other. Each contains the other. They are one. Bhikkhus, regard women older than yourself as your mother or elder sister. Regard women younger than yourself as your younger sister or daughter. Do not let your attractions create difficulties for your practice. If necessary, until your concentration is stronger, limit your contacts with women. Speak only words which relate to the study and practice of the way. This is for the mendicants, but you can also all be kind of take care of this. The bhikkhus were happy to receive the Buddha's guidance. Now we come to chapter 58. We have some few more minutes. A handful of precious earth. One day, while begging in a poor hamlet, the Buddha met some children playing on a dirt path. They were building a city from dirt and sand, complete with a city wall, storehouse, dwellings, and even a river. When the children saw the Buddha and the bhikkhus approaching, one child said to the others, "The Buddha and the bhikkhus are traveling past our city. It is only proper for us to make an offering to him." The other children liked the idea but said, "What do we have to offer the Buddha? We are only children." The first child answered, "Listen, my friends, there are great reserves of harvested rice in the storehouse of our city, of dirt and sand. We can offer some of it to the Buddha." The other children clapped their hands in delight. They dug out a handful of dirt from their storehouse and, pretending it was rice, placed it on a leaf. The first child lifted the leaf in two hands and respectfully knelt before the Buddha. The other child knelt beside him. He said, "The people of our city respectfully offer this rice from our storehouse. We pray you will accept it." The Buddha smiled. He patted the boy on the head and said, "Thank you, children, for offering this precious rice to us. You are most thoughtful." The Buddha turned to Ananda and said, "Ananda, please take this offering, and as soon as we return to the monastery, we can mix it with water and daub it on the earthen bricks of my hut." Ananda took the handful of earth. The children invited the Buddha to sit with them on a large rock beneath a nearby banyan tree. Ananda and the other bhikkhus gathered around too. The Buddha told the children a story. So Buddha used to always tell the children about these stories from the Jatak tales. Right? Mostly these stories are from his own past lives. So because children are able to absorb in a story format in a much better way, and so are adults. We are hardwired to absorb stories better. Many lives ago, there lived a prince named Visvantara. He was a very generous and kind-hearted man. He always shared with the poor and needy, never hesitating to part with anything he owed. His wife, Madri, was equally generous. She knew how much pleasure it gave her husband to help others, and she never expressed any regret about things he gave away. They had a son named Jalin and daughter named Krishna Jina. During a famine, Prince Vishwantara asked his father's permission to distribute rice and clothes from the imperial stores to the poor. The king consented. So great was the people's needs that the stores were nearly exhausted. This caused alarm to a number of imperial advisors. They wanted to devise a scheme that would prevent the prince from giving any more away. First, they told the king that the prince's indiscriminate giving would be the ruin of the kingdom. They revealed that the prince had given away one of the treasured imperial elephants. At this, even the king grew alarmed. He allowed his ministers to talk him into banishing his only son to remote mountains of Jayutara, where the prince would experience first-hand the hardships of a simple life. Thus, Biswantara, Madri, and the two children were sent into exile. On their journey to the mountains, they met a poor beggar. The prince removed his fine jacket and gave it to the man. When they encountered more poor people, Madri removed his own fine jacket and gave it to them. Before long, Jalin and Krishnanja had given away their jackets as well. The family had also given away their jewels and ornaments to needy people along the route. Before they reached the mountains, they had given away everything they owned that could be traded for food. At last, the prince gave away even their carriages and two horses. The prince carried Jalin, and Madri lifted Krishnajina into their arms. Without regrets, they walked until they reached Jayutaru. They walked and sang as though they didn't have a care in the world. Their hearts felt light and free. It was a long trek, and Viswantara and Madri's feet were swollen and bloody by the time they made it to the remote mountains. They were lucky to find an abandoned hut on the mountain slope. The hut had once belonged to a hermit. They swept and tidied the hut and gathered leafy branches to make beds. In the forest, they found an ample supply of wild fruits and greens to eat. The children learned how to gather food, wash clothes in the mountain spring, sow seeds, and tend a garden. The prince and his wife taught the children how to read and write using large leaves of paper and thorns for pens. Though their life was difficult, they were content. For 3 years, they lived in peace. But then one day, when Prince Vishwantara and Madri were out gathering fruit deep in the forest, a stranger came and kidnapped the children. The prince and his wife searched for many days throughout the forest and in nearby villages, but they could not find a trace of their beloved children. Okay, this seems to be a long story, so we will continue this story tomorrow. We'll continue this story tomorrow and stop here. Okay. Anyone wants to share anything from today's session? Long story. Oh, okay. Sorry, I think I'm hearing my own voice. Just a second. Yes. I was surprised. How come I am speaking myself? Okay. Yes. Anyone wants to share anything or speak or ask any question or yes, Nehaji, it was very beautiful and bit emotional. Absolutely agree with you. And it had, like the breeze thing. So much resonated with that. We sometimes get too attached with our children and our wife or husband, and just whatever we just let go, kind of, you know. And with attachment comes pain, right? Ask thinking that they should kind of we care so much about them, and then that brings a lot of suffering also in our relationships. So that was a good, actually. It's just that we be in this, yeah, exactly. Letting go is so difficult, and that's the real challenge. I agree with you. In relationships, that letting go thing is the big challenge, right? Any question, anything? Let me just check if I have anything on the live chat. Hello, Shivansh. If you have anything, please write, or you can put it as a comment in the recording. Okay. So we close for today. I hope this was good, and we meet tomorrow, right? Thank you so much. Thank you, Priyaji. Thank you, Deepji. Thank you, Sandhya.